so when you hear the name Noël Coward, what comes to mind? For a lot of people, it's this image of a guy in a fancy silk dressing gown, probably holding a long cigarette holder, cracking some incredibly witty joke. And yeah, he was absolutely a titan of 20th century theater, a true symbol of wit and style. But that's really only half the story. There's so much more to him. Behind all that sparkle was a writer who really, truly understood the heart of a nation. To really get a handle on Coward, you've got to look at him through these three kind of contradictory lenses. First, there's the pure, dazzling wit of his comedies. Then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you have the quiet, unexpected heartbreak he could write so perfectly. And then there's just the sheer spectacle of it all, his huge, epic dramas. You'd think these three things couldn't possibly come from the same person, but that's exactly where his genius is hiding. Okay, so let's start with Act 1. This is the Noël Coward that everyone thinks they know, the absolute, unparalleled master of witty comedy. For years, he was the guy building these sophisticated, sparkling plays that were basically a mirror held up to the upper class, and, hilariously showing them just how ridiculous they could be. He basically owned a specific genre, the comedy of manners. This was his playground. These kinds of plays are all about making fun of social rules, the self-obsession of high society. He wasn't just writing one-liners. He was dissecting an entire social class with, surgical precision, and always with a little smirk. A perfect example of this is one of his early hits, Hay Fever. The setup is just brilliant. You have this super eccentric family, the Blisses, and each of them, without telling anyone else, invites a guest to stay for the weekend. What you get is a masterclass in social chaos, as these poor, unsuspecting guests try to figure out what on earth is going on. It's pure, delightful anarchy. And that idea, that none of us are quite as normal as we pretend to be, is right at the heart of his most famous comedy, Private Lives. The plot is legendary. A divorced couple, Elliot and Amanda, accidentally book adjoining hotel rooms while on their honeymoons with their new spouses. Of course, that old, fiery spark between them instantly reignites. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? He knew that under the surface we're all a bit of a mess. And for Coward, that thin, blurry line between love and hate, that's where all the best comedy is. And he takes this comedic chaos to a whole other level in Blithe Spirit. Oh, the plot is just wonderful. It all starts when a writer, Charles, decides to hold a seance just for research for his new book. Terrible idea. He accidentally summons the ghost of his first wife, Elvira. And the best part? Only Charles can see or hear her. You can just imagine the jealousy and confusion this causes with his very much alive second wife, Ruth. It's basically a supernatural love triangle played for huge laughs. But just when you think you've got him pegged as this king of comedy, the curtain goes up on Act 2. And here we find a completely different Noël Coward. This is the man who put down the champagne glass to become the voice of his country, writing about its heartbreaks, its strength, and its resilience. And wow, nothing shows this side of him better than Brief Encounter. This phrase right here perfectly captures it. The quiet despair and beauty of unfulfilled love. We are a million miles away from the comedies now. This is a subtle, heartbreaking story about a married doctor and a housewife who meet by chance and fall deeply, hopelessly in love. They're torn between what they feel and what they know is their duties, and Coward captures this quiet tragedy with just breathtaking emotion. He also knew how to zoom out from these personal stories to look at the life of the whole country. In this happy breed, he follows a single, ordinary, middle-class family, the Gibbons, from the end of World War I all the way to the start of World War II. And through their lives, their small joys, and their big sorrows, he managed to capture the spirit of everyday British people as they lived through massive, massive change. It's just a really powerful, down-to-earth piece of work. But his most ambitious project? Oh, that had to be Cavalcade. I mean, the scale of this thing is just mind-blowing. The play covers 3 decades of British history. We're talking the Boer War, the sinking of the Titanic, World War I, the whole shebang. And it does this by following 2 families, one rich and one working class, showing us how these huge historical moments ripple down and change individual personal lives. It was an absolute epic. So here we are. We've got these 2 versions of Noël Coward, the witty guy in the smoking jacket and the profound writer capturing the British soul. So the big question is, how do these 2 seemingly opposite artists add up to one single enduring legacy?
Well, the simple answer is that he was never just one thing. He was a brilliant playwright, for sure, but he was also a fantastic composer. He wrote famous songs like Mad Dogs and Englishmen. He was a director, a celebrated actor. He just moved so easily between witty comedies and heartbreaking dramas, from giant stage musicals to intimate films. The man could do it all.
And that right there is the ultimate takeaway. The very same mind that could write a hilarious, biting song about the British Empire could also write a scene of quiet romantic despair that would absolutely break your heart. His true genius wasn't just in the wit or just in the drama. It was in his incredible range, his sharp, insightful, and compassionate understanding of the entire spectrum of what it means to be human. So it kind of leaves us with this final thought, right? In our world of fleeting fame, why do we still talk about Noël Coward? Why are his plays still on stages all over the world? Well, maybe it's because he understood something really fundamental about life itself, that it's always a mix of high comedy and deep emotion, of spectacular moments and quiet heartbreaks. And he knew, better than almost anyone, how to put all of that on a stage.